Alright, hello everybody. Welcome back to LiveStream Under the Moonshine. This will be part 2, the continuation of Cabin Fever, which we started Monday night. So number 260. So Cabin Fever is definitely a very adorable, I guess, but a very adorable, very sappy kind of a love story so far. But it is pretty cute, and I got to admit, I like it so far. I'm intrigued and interested to see what happens with our dude that we're playing. I named myself Gus, and we have met a lady who was, we don't know much about why she was leaving or why she was wandering across the country, but she was cold, it was raining, and she saw lights in our cabin. I think she was looking for protection from the wind and the rain, and she stepped in one of our bear traps that we had set up. Now this is kind of a worst case scenario COVID kind of situation where the world is basically in mass shutdown, people are in quarantine, and it's pretty much every person for themselves, and there's a lot of sickness going around. So the character I'm playing, Gus, was really hesitant about getting too close to this lady at first, but he felt really guilty about her stepping in his bear trap, and kind of helped her out and brought her in, and now they're getting pretty close. So pretty interesting. We're going to go ahead and continue. Welcome back to LiveStream Under the Moonshine, everybody. So thanks so much for being here. So let's go ahead and load the game, and we got to chapter 5 on Monday night. So. We're going to continue from right here. I woke up to the sun shining at an unfamiliar angle through my bedroom window. I checked the time and realized I'd slept in. Not by much, but still weird. I decided that I must have needed the extra sleep. I knew stress could drain the body's energy. Yeah, I've been stressed over the past couple of days. But the house smelled amazing again, and my stomach clenched and unclenched in hunger. We heard the growl, I heard it. There was nothing, absolutely nothing, to be unhappy about. I got out of bed, got dressed, and made my way down the creaky staircase. Something struck me as I reached the bottom step. The chairs were tucked in at the table. The blankets were neatly folded on the couch, and I was pretty sure the floor had been swept again. It all made me feel so much calmer than usual. I never knew how much my home's cleanliness could affect my mood.
Morning, sleepyhead. Your breakfast is waiting.
There we go. I turned around. Mallory was standing extremely close to me. I thought about stepping back, but then I forgot because her cheeks were flushing red, and I'm pretty sure mine were too.
Good morning to you too. First things first, though.
I went to grab the temperature scanner and held it up between us.
Oh, right, of course.
She lifted her hair out of the way and let me scan her forehead. The scanner beeped happily. Somehow, I felt even more relieved than the other times I checked and found her temperature normal. Mallory danced away from me and then spun back around. Suddenly, there was a large plate of food under my nose, and I grinned.
It isn't much, but I thought it would be good to have a high-calorie meal since we both worked so hard yesterday.
There you go. It didn't seem possible, but the breakfast looked even more incredible than the one she had made me yesterday. The plate held a rainbow of foods, sliced red strawberries on a tower of golden pancakes drizzled with amber syrup, a stir-fry of rice and orange and yellow peppers surrounded by fresh, crisp, glistening greens, and a perfect, soft, boiled egg. Boy, doesn't that sound good? My mouth watered. She's certainly come a long way.
I did use the last of the eggs in your fridge to make this. I hope that's okay. I went out to check the coop for more, but there were none.
He's eating. I had already grabbed the plate and started eating. Through a mouthful of pancakes, I mumbled an incoherent reply to her and shook my head up and down.
Sometimes it takes them a day or two, but we'll have more eggs soon.
She smiled and sat down across from me with her own plate. She ate her breakfast with far more elegance than I ate mine. After we'd finished breakfast, I gathered up my paltry first aid supplies so I could clean up and rewrap Mallory's leg. My gaze landed on the box of disposable masks tucked at the back of the drawer. The ones I'd been wearing each day when medical care necessitated getting up close and personal with her. But not when we'd been working outside or in the aquaponics room, or when she sat next to me on the couch while I played my video game. I slid the drawer shut, deciding not to bother with the mask. The two of us chatted a while, and while I tended to her wound.
So I guess I worked you too hard yesterday, huh?
What makes you say that?
You fell asleep at like 7 o'clock last night.
Mallory flushed pink again. She didn't seem sure on how to respond. That face.
It's okay. You learned a lot yesterday, and learning is hard work. I probably went a little overboard with the teaching.
No, but I enjoyed it so much.
It made me really happy to hear her say that. Once I'd finished fixing her bandages, I got up to peer outside. The sky above was blue, and there were great clouds gathering in the distance. I decided to check the weather forecast. I stood at my desk, waiting on the computer to boot up and connect to the web. Once I did, a number of notifications popped up, chiming cheerily. I followed them to my email inbox and glanced through my unread messages. One work update, a couple of newsletters, something from a coupon service I didn't remember signing up for, and of course a bunch more hogwash forwards about the many cures my doctor didn't want me to know about. Right? Read the spam just for fun or delete the spam? We're gonna read it just for fun. I clicked open one of the email boards, smirking.
Hey, Mallory. Have you heard about this one weird trick for removing viral toxins?
Removing them from where?
It doesn't actually say, but there's a grainy picture of someone laying what looks like lasagna noodles across their stomach. So I'm assuming it's nothing to do with that.
Funny.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe how many of these I get. They're so stupid.
I closed out the email and deleted it along with the others. I pulled up a weather forecast.
Partly cloudy this morning with a chance of scattered showers throughout the afternoon and overnight. And it looks like tomorrow's gonna be rainy all day.
Oh well. I felt like a bit of a chump for panicking about the water. I looked up at Mallory.
Maybe there'll be enough water for a luxurious bath after all.
She grimaced and giggled.
I should probably do a few things outside, though. Get the basic chores done before the weather turns.
I'll help.
I wasn't sure. I could tell she was sore from yesterday, and I was still worried about her leg. Also, why was she so insistent on doing so much?
How about you just keep me company this time?
Oh, alright.
We headed outside. The sunshine was strong. There was a chill in the air that hadn't been present yesterday. Occasional clouds moved past the sun, casting cold shadows over the garden. A flock of geese passed over us, noisy and energized.
They're flying south to escape the coming cold. They probably have their own tropical paradise somewhere, with their own beach houses where they spend all winter sunbathing and drinking margaritas. Just kidding. Geese don't do that stuff. But wouldn't it be nice to go on a vacation like that?
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I've never been on a vacation.
I frowned, pausing to bend and pull up a stray dandelion poking out of the grass.
Maybe someday someone will figure out a way to stop the virus, and you'll be able to go somewhere amazing.
Not by myself, I hope.
No, definitely not by yourself.
I can't look at that face. We walked around the property, Mallory humming happily to herself while I puttered about, checking the well, making sure the hens were happy and fed, yanking more dandelions out of the ground where I saw them. Pretty soon, Mallory had grabbed a bucket and started pulling weeds too. It was like she couldn't help herself. I just shook my head.
That's probably enough hard labor for the day. Let's go in. I need to do some work on my computer.
Oh, not just yet. Please. I'd like to enjoy the fresh air a little while longer before the rain comes.
Ah, okay. If you're good, then I'm good.
I reached down for another clump of weeds and felt my stomach flip when I saw a big black spider clinging onto the leaves I'd pulled. I flicked my hand reflexively, which sent the weed and the creepy crawly flying across the garden.
Ugh. Stay on the alert for spiders.
Oh yes, I've already met a few of them. They're so helpful chasing off all the harmful bugs.
Of course, Mallory would treat spiders with the same kind of adoration any cuddly pet deserved. We continued pulling weeds together side by side, and I tried to keep the pace slow and casual. Despite that, and despite the heavy clouds moving in, we were both sweating pretty soon.
Phew, I am hot. I almost want to take my sweater off.
She said this with a giggle, standing up straight to stretch her back and survey the neat-looking garden. I felt myself blush, embarrassed by the suggestion, the image that my mind was conjuring up. You being flirty? Try flirting back. Let's flirt back.
Taking your sweater off won't change anything.
I gave an exaggerated wink. She blinked at me, and I immediately wished the ground would open up and swallow me whole. It took a moment for her to process the joke, but when it clicked, she burst out laughing. Her laugh made me laugh too. We were interrupted when Mallory's stomach decided to let out a high-pitched growl. She stopped laughing and clasped her hand on her stomach. Welcome back, AC.
Sorry. My tummy must be hungry after all that work.
Mine is too. And I think I felt a raindrop just now, which is probably our cue to head inside. Do you want to meet me in there? I'll pick some things to make us a strawberry salad.
Wow, that sounds so delicious. I'll see you in a bit.
I grabbed a bucket off the porch and spent a few minutes in the garden gathering ingredients. A few raindrops pelted me here and there. Quickly, I hurried back inside, following Mallory's footsteps. By the time we'd finished eating lunch, the gray clouds had fully taken over the sky, and rain clung in droplets to the cabin's windows.
Well, if we get as much rain as the forecast predicts, the rain barrel sure will be happy.
Those are the big containers on the side of the house?
Yeah, you're getting good at this. It's probably the #1 most important system I have here. The water those 4 barrels can hold can last a long time, as long as I'm careful with it.
No luxurious baths. No water balloon fights either, I'm guessing. Just basic cleaning, cooking, and drinking, right?
Jeez, you make me sound like someone who doesn't know how to have fun. You're pretty much right, though. But you can't just drink rainwater. It wouldn't be safe.
Oh?
The water picks up a lot of things before it makes its way into the barrel. Pollution from the air, chemicals, dirt and bird droppings from the roof.
Ew.
Yeah, it's gross. So I add chemicals to the water and filter it to make it clean and safe. I'll have to show you how all that stuff works. Cleaning the water, using the spigots.
She turned her head to look me right in the eyes.
You're really smart. I like hearing about all the systems you use here.
My cheeks burned under the shock of her beautiful gaze, and the admiration I saw in her eyes. I nodded, not knowing what else to say. After that conversation, I went to check the solar batteries. They were full, which was good. The power they had banked would last us a few days, if necessary. Then the two of us settled down in the living room. I worked on my computer while Mallory gently explored my things and eventually nestled into the couch with a book to flip through. It was oddly effortless, the silence and comfort that filled the room all through the afternoon. Gradually, the sky darkened and so did the interior of the cabin. It was probably a long past time for a break when Mallory closed her book and stood up, teetering just a little on her bad leg.
Can I make us some tea?
I leaned back in my chair.
That sounds like a very good idea. Yes, please.
She meandered into the kitchen and put the kettle on to boil. I stood up and went to the utility room so I could switch off the inverter. There likely wouldn't be any more sunlight for the next while, so I decided to reduce the load on the solar batteries and only run off the DC power for the rest of the night. I heard something coming from the kitchen, like a small, stifled cough. Uh-oh. I listened hard to see if it would come again, but it didn't.
She's probably just clearing her throat.
I came back out into the kitchen and took a seat at the table. Mallory brought over 2 steaming mugs and set them down.
Honey?
Yes, dear?
We both froze. I felt my cheeks suddenly warm. Yeah, she's asking if you want honey in your tea, dummy. Why did you say that? Screamed my brain.
I meant honey for your tea?
Yep, you did.
I felt like such an idiot. The reply had flown from my mouth before I even had a chance to think about it. Okay, I said to myself. Now salvage this.
And I was saying, yes, I will have honey for my tea. And then I was very rudely interrupted mid-thought by a deer that definitely exists and totally ran past the window.
Yes, dear. Mallory laughed. But it was a you're cute kind of laugh, not a I'm laughing at you kind of laugh, so I felt better. After bringing over the honey and some spoons, Mallory sat by me and picked up her mug, took a drink, and made a strange little noise in her throat.
Ooh, this burned my tongue.
See, that's why I always let mine cool down for a minute or two.
I couldn't do that. It smelled too delicious to wait.
I got up and poured her a glass of cold water.
Here, this will help.
Thank you. You're so sweet.
After taking a few sips of water, she set down her glass and looked at me with a sad, soft smile.
So, why would someone as nice as you feel the need to set bear traps right in front of their home?
The question caught me by surprise. I didn't know she'd even been thinking about that. Of course, it seemed obvious now. She had acted far too chipper and unconcerned when the accident had happened. She must have been holding back, and was just now feeling safe enough to question why she'd been hurt in the first place. Uh-oh. I nodded slowly.
Well, I don't know who this nice person is you're talking about, but I can tell you why I have traps set up around my house. It's all because of Lola.
Ooh, is that a stalker ex-girlfriend? Do you have to defend your property from a lot of girls?
No, it's nothing like that.
I paused to take a sip of my tea, taking care to blow on it a few times before drinking. For some reason, I couldn't quite look at Mallory then, though I could see from the corner of my eye that she was listening intently.
Lola was my best friend, my beautiful Bernese mountain dog.
Aww.
She was the family pet, really, but me and her, we had a special bond.
Poor Lola.
After my parents passed away, Lola and I took care of each other. She was a hard worker. She was by my side always, finding little ways to help me out. You definitely would have loved her. She had one brown eye and one blue eye, and her heart was made of gold.
Aw. Mallory nodded softly, wrapping her hands around her mug of tea.
One fall evening, I was inside working on the computer, and Lola was outside on the deck, just enjoying the cold. Bernese mountain dogs are, as the name implies, mountain dogs, and they're made to be out in the snow. She loved snow. The deeper, the better. But it hadn't snowed yet that year.
A surge of emotion came over me. I had never told anyone this story before. I needed to pause and drink more tea to stop myself from caving in to the sorrow. Aw, he misses his dog.
Lola started barking, and I ignored her. Because she was always barking at squirrels and birds and things, thinking she was protecting our territory. What a silly dog.
Aw.
But this time, it wasn't a squirrel or a bird. I actually don't even know for sure what it was. The tracks I found later looked like they might have come from a grizzly.
Mallory gasped and held her hands up to her face. I felt like if I stopped now, I wouldn't be able to start over again. So I just kept going.
When I realized how urgent her barking was, I ran outside. But she was already gone.
Aw. Sad.
That eerie silence is something I'll never forget.
Wow.
I searched for her all night and all the next day. I never found her. Just tracks and some blood and fur. I don't know if a bear grabbed her and took her, or if she went chasing after it, or what. I just know I've never been so angry in my whole life. I was already dealing with the pain of losing my parents, and now Lola was gone too. After that, I pulled out all my family's old traps from the shed and set them up around the house. It was too little too late, but I needed to feel like I was doing something. It never occurred to me that a human might get hurt in one, and I'm really, really sorry that you did.
Wow. I love the voice acting. The voice acting makes it sound like he's actually torn up and sad about it. Absolutely. I looked up to see Mallory nodding vigorously, wiping tears from her eyes.
I don't fault you at all for what happened to my leg. I was the one who trespassed in the dead of night.
Yeah, that's true.
She let out a short laugh through her tears, sniffling. I got out of my chair again to find her some tissues, and when I handed them to her, I found myself giving her narrow shoulder a squeeze. Aw.
I'm so sorry about Lola. That's a heartbreaking story.
Look at the tears.
Sorry I made you cry.
No. I'm glad you shared that with me.
For a moment, I wondered if this was it. The moment she would start to open up and share her story with me too. Why she had been outside my house in the middle of nowhere, in the rain, at night, all alone. Maybe I should encourage her.
Okay, it's your turn.
What for?
To tell me something about you. Something real. Like maybe what brought you here?
A look of discomfort crossed her face. It's obvious she still didn't want to tell me.
Or if you're not ready to talk about that, then maybe you can tell me something else. Something more light. Please? I hardly know anything about you.
What do you want to know?
Ask her about her favorite memory. Ask her about her hopes for the future. Let's ask her about her memory first.
Tell me something about how you grew up. A happy moment or favorite memory.
She pressed a finger to her lips, thinking hard.
My favorite memory? Building pillow forts with my sister, and playing make-believe that we were airship captains flying through the clouds. We lived at the top of the tallest building on our street, which is probably what inspired our game. I remember we had this old pair of binoculars. They weren't good or anything, but we used to look up at the night sky through them and pretend we were looking into other galaxies.
Space is super cool. I approve.
Giggled.
I always loved the night sky. All the stars and planets and satellites. We actually lived really close to the planetarium, and it was always my dream to go there and see a show. But it got closed down when I was just a baby. My mom would always tell me that someday the planetarium would open again. And I just had to be patient. I guess I never really stopped waiting.
She gave me a sad smile.
Hey, I think I've been to that planetarium. I would have been really small, so I don't remember a lot, but that's kind of cool, right? But you know, we could totally go stargazing here in the mountains. There's nothing like it.
He looked away, cheeks flushing
Anyway,
pink.
I should
Oh,
probably
sorry.
let you get back to work now.
So sorry about that. She looked away, cheeks flushing pink. She wiped her eyes and shrugged. Anyway, I should probably let you get back to work now. The last thing I wanted to do was go back to work. I gave her a little poke, just for suggesting it.
Don't do that. I'm super ticklish.
I love how the music changes with the mood. It's really cool.
Oh, are you? I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
I poked her again, gently wiggling my fingers. Twisted in her seat, laughing, her eyes lighting up. Her laugh was beautiful. She squealed and kicked her feet as I tickled her sides. A playful attempt at retaliation sent her slipping off. Wait a minute. A playful attempt at retaliation sent her slipping off her chair, but I easily caught her. And suddenly, it was like our arms were around each other. We sat there on the floor, both of us laughing through our breathlessness. It was amazing. And then it was a little awkward. Hey everyone, thanks for coming in. I withdrew my arms and got to my feet. I helped her up. We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other.
I have an idea. Let me treat you to a special dinner tonight.
A special dinner. Ooh, and what would that be?
I haven't thought that far ahead yet. Give me a minute.
Well, I thought about what sort of meal I could make from the things I had in the kitchen or pantry. Truthfully, I wasn't a very good cook. I mean, I could throw together a salad or a sandwich, but that wouldn't be special enough. A thought sprang to my mind. In the pantry, there was a very old bottle of red wine. I didn't know if it was fancy or even good wine, but it was the only bottle of booze I had in the house, and because of that, I valued it highly. Originally, I had intended to save it for a special occasion, specifically for the day the virus was cured. That bottle had been sitting on a shelf for many years. The hopeful note I had attached to it to celebrate the cure faded and dusty. Could I open it now? Should I open it now? No, it was special, really special, and meant for a day that might not ever come. Wine is meant to be shared, my brain reminded me. What the hell? I'll do it. I'll share that wine with Mallory. I swished my hand through the air and gave my best pompous butler impersonation.
A most decadent helping of popped corn with truffle oil and adult beverages.
Mallory stared at me and then tossed her head back in laughter.
Dinner is popcorn and nondescript alcohol? That sounds fantastic.
While I had the popcorn going, I asked Mallory to go look for the truffle oil from the cellar.
I'm back. I think this is the right one.
She turned the bottle to me and I read the label. Scribbled in my own sloppy Jiffy marker writing were the words, "The good stuff." I nodded and motioned my chin to show her where to find the wine glasses and the bowls.
So you made this truffle oil yourself?
Yeah, it's not too hard once you get the hang of it. The first batches I ever made were terrible though. Lots of trial and error before I landed on the right mix of ingredients and timing.
She brought out a large bowl from the cupboard and placed it beside me for the popcorn.
Wow, that's so cool. I think it's incredible that you've learned to do all these things.
That's just how it goes when you live on your own. If you'd like, I can teach you.
While reaching up to grab the wine glasses, she cocked her head curiously at me.
You would want to teach me?
Of course. You're good company, and it might be fun to show you how these things work.
She smiled at me and took the wine glasses over to the living room, dusting them off with her sweater as she walked. The popcorn was almost ready. Settling into the couch to watch a movie on my computer felt very different having a beautiful girl beside me. The same one who, only a few minutes earlier, was on the verge of tears. I was happy that I could cheer her up. if only for a little while. She seemed much happier with the distraction of the popcorn and the movie.
Oh my goodness, this wine is the best tasting thing I've ever had in my life.
Her cheeks began to turn rosy after just the first sip. It made me happy seeing her like this, and I was glad that I could share this small gift with someone. So the reason I said that, the reason I put drunk in there is because I was wondering, like, it sounds like they're going to get drunk. I wonder if they're going to drink too much and get all tipsy and out of control. Never know. Everyone, I'm doing good. I think you were asking AC about that though. But how are you? Thanks so much for joining us. Hopefully you can stay a little bit before you have to leave. I know you said you had to pretty soon. But everybody, thanks so much for being here. Hopefully you're enjoying the content.
What sort of movie would you like to watch?
How about something with action? And romance? Oh, and some comedy too.
Action, romance, and comedy.
That's a tall order. Let me see what I can find.
It wasn't long before we both relaxed to let ourselves be absorbed into the movie. It was a strange story about a girl from the moon who fell in love with a human. They had to overcome their differences in order to realize they were destined to be together. There was also a moon cat that would bust out wisecracks every 10 minutes. It had Mallory roaring with laughter, as I expected.
This cat, I can't believe some of the things he says.
Her laughter was infectious, and soon had me joining in, despite the subpar humor of the movie.
I haven't laughed like this in so long. Oh my gosh, my stomach hurts from laughing.
Yeah, I mean, I think this visual novel does have great art. The music is really good too. The music definitely sets the mood for whatever mood it is, whether it be dramatic or fearful or happy as it is now, or whatever. The music is definitely really good. That's why I've got it up to where you guys can hear it. Hopefully you guys can hear it well, and the art, I think, is really well done. Clumsily, I spilled a bit of wine on my pajama pants. Splotch had landed right on my, thing that rhymes with splotch. Oh my god. So he spilled a little bit of wine on his crotch. Gotcha. The sight of it only made us roar with more laughter. It may have been the wine causing us to act so funny, but it may have just been that we were long overdue for a good, honest laugh. Story is a bit cheesy, but it's well done. Yeah, good game. Being like this with her made me feel like my old self, or rather, like the person I might have been had my circumstances not forced me to become a young hermit. I wondered when we had started sitting so close to each other. I suppose it was that we could share the bowl of popcorn without having to reach. But in fact, Mallory was so close to me that I could feel the heat radiating off of her thigh beside my hand. I stretched out my fingers to graze her leg, in the waters to see how she would react. Uh-oh. To my surprise, she didn't recoil. So there my hand sat for the remainder of the movie, too nervous to move either way. At one point, I noticed her hand fall into her lap. It was resting in a way that seemed uncomfortable, with her palm facing upwards. It was honestly quite distracting. Before I could figure out if she had left it there for me to hold or not, the movie had ended, and I missed my chance.
I really enjoyed that. Thanks so much for watching with me.
Parts of it were entertaining, definitely. Like that bizarre turtle in a top hat.
That's right. And how we saved them from that lizard beast was so insane.
We sat together for another moment, recanting the ridiculousness of the story we had just experienced. All the windows were dark now, and Mallory looked exhausted. I felt pretty tired, too.
I guess I should get off your bed and let you get some sleep.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. See you in the morning?
Definitely.
A little reluctantly, I left Mallory on the couch and climbed up the stairs to my bedroom. As I settled into bed, I felt a strange mix of happiness and loneliness. Two feelings I hadn't felt or allowed myself to feel in a very long time. The pain of losing my family had been too much to bear, and so my heart had shut off, and I had just existed, going through the motions, waiting endlessly for nothing in particular. Now I was rediscovering myself, relearning what it meant to be a human. It was all because of Mallory. And then, as though she had known I was thinking about her, Mallory called up to me.
Sweet dreams.
You too. Get a good night's sleep.
I yawned and nestled deeper into my pillow. Before I could remember what I'd been thinking about it, before I remembered what I was thinking about, I was fast asleep. We're on to chapter 6, Attachment.
Good morning, sleepyhead.
The voice drew me towards consciousness, but I didn't know if it was real or part of my dream. I heard a familiar creaking. Who could be walking up the stairs? I was pretty sure it wasn't me. No, I was definitely laying in my bed. My eyelids were heavy and my brain was only half awake. A weight pressed down on the bed near my feet. Uh-oh, she's coming to get in bed with you, man.
Wakey, wakey.
She's probably got breakfast in bed, ready for him, be my guess. It sounded like Mallory. I teetered on the edge of consciousness, hoping I'd be left alone to fall back asleep into a slumber. The weight at the end of the bed shifted, shaking me a little. I squeezed my eyes shut.
Okay, you leave me no choice. Incoming pounce attack!
Oh boy. Oh wow. That isn't what I was expecting. I was jolted awake, fully this time, by the force of Mallory jumping right on top of me. Yeah. I don't know if this is going to turn into an X-rated visual novel. Let's hope not. I don't think so. A panicked shout escaped me as I yanked the covers up past my neck, leaving only my face exposed. Mallory beamed, straddling me proudly, her clear aquamarine eyes filled with mischief. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oops, did I scare you? Well, you left me no choice. I tried calling you, throwing things at you, and wafting delicious smells in your direction. None of those worked, so this was my last resort for getting you to wake up. And it did the trick. You're awake now.
What kind of monster just pounces like that on a poor defenseless sleeping person?
Monster, you say? Wow, you sure do know how to give a girl a compliment.
I scowled at her playfully. I was pretty sure she was resting her whole weight on me, but she felt like nothing. And though I had been legitimately straddled and more than a little confused, I found now that I didn't dislike the situation.
If you're jumping about like this, does that mean your leg is feeling better?
Mallory looked down at her bandaged leg, and then back at me. She pursed her lips.
It doesn't hurt as much, but it feels kind of weak. Like it might give out if I put too much weight on it.
I didn't know enough to know if that was normal, or what it meant. I nodded vaguely and just stared up at her, and she stared down at me. And then I shook myself. AC says, what the fuck? I had to put the stream on my Xbox because my headset died and I got a commercial. I don't get commercials when I watch on PC. Oh, wow. Yeah, I probably, if you're subscribed or whatever, it probably goes on PC that you're already subscribed. I don't know, man. Or you probably have an ad blocker on your PC. Yeah, you might have an ad blocker on your PC, AC. I don't know.
So why did you need me to wake up so urgently?
She cocked her head.
I made you breakfast and I didn't want it to get cold. And I was worried. You're usually up way earlier than this. And maybe I was a little lonely and sort of missed you.
What did she mean by usually up way earlier? I craned my neck to check the clock by the nightstand. Oh, that was what she meant.
Damn, what's up with me? I never sleep this long.
Sometimes your body just needs a little extra rest. Okay, now...
Mallory twisted, leaned over the bed, and produced, as if from nowhere, a plate of breakfast.
Ta-da!
Breakfast in bed. What guy wouldn't like that? She held the plate out, showing me a stack of fluffy golden waffles. They smelled amazing, fruity and sweet, flecked with red and drizzled with maple syrup.
My mouth is watering. I never knew that was an actual thing that happened to mouths.
Tea. Strawberry waffles from scratch will do that to you. You'll have to tell me once you taste them, but I think I may have outdone myself this time. The only thing I did make from scratch is the syrup.
That's okay. I made the syrup from scratch.
Wait, you did?
I nodded.
There are tons of maple trees around here. I harvest their sap at the end of each winter. It's pretty simple. I drill small holes into the trees and insert what's called a spile, which is like a spout. The sap drains out through there and into a bucket. When I have enough to fill a pot, I essentially boil it down until it's mostly evaporated. Then it's syrup. And the best part is, it keeps forever, so I can just store it in glass jars in my pantry.
Mallory had never looked happier or more amazed or more beautiful.
That sounds like some kind of fairy magic.
The real magic is your cooking. This looks incredible. Although, do you mind taking it downstairs so we can eat there? I'd like to get dressed and, well,
Mallory looked down at herself and the way she was straddling me, and her face turned bright red quite rapidly. She scrambled to get off of me, nearly dropping the plate of waffles in her flustered state. Oh, the dude's turned on. That's funny. He's like turned on. She noticed.
I'll do that now. Sorry. See you downstairs.
That's too cute. Without making eye contact, she raced down the stairs. There came the sound of cutlery being fumbled in at the kitchen below. I dragged my hand down my face, equal parts amused, exasperated, and happy. After breakfast, Mallory was quick to scoop up my plate and cutlery. I offered to help, but she said she would do them herself. By now, I had learned that there was no arguing with her, not because she was particularly stubborn, but because I caved in the slightest pushback. She made me weak, but like, in a nice way. So while she cleaned up, I walked to the window overlooking the garden. The skies were dark and dreary, far more ominous this morning than before. The ground glistened and I could see little puddles on the path leading up to the door. They rippled as a gust of wind rushed past.
I guess it's another day indoors. Look how glum that weather is.
I glanced back at Mallory in the kitchen. Took a look through the window, making a little pouty face.
Also, clouds like this mean we're not getting any solar, so we're relying on what's stored in the battery bank for now. We should limit how much electricity we use today.
Okay, I'll be extra careful.
I turned back to the window and pressed my hand against it. The glass was cold, much colder than usual. If it was going to rain all day and be chilly, I should bring in some extra wood for a fire. 30 pieces could do. Then I stole another glance back at Mallory. Mallory in her threadbare sweater dress, so thin and so short. Better make it 50 pieces, I told my brain, and my brain agreed. Outside, the rain was really coming down. I kept close to the edge of the cabin, sneaking along under what cover there was on my way to the woodshed. The ground was too muddy to use the wheelbarrow, so I figured I'd have to make more than one trip. I gathered up a big armload of firewood and brought it back to the cabin. I repeated this process, getting wetter and colder as I went. On my last trip to the woodshed, it occurred to me that I would never have bothered with this much effort if it were only myself in the cabin. I would have just made do with a few logs already inside, wrapped myself in blankets, and, if it came to it, suffered the cold. But Mallory deserved better than that. After bringing in all the wood, I laid it out on a towel beside the fireplace. I always inspected the logs for bugs. I didn't want anything creepy hitching a ride inside my home. Once that task was done, I arranged a couple of logs along with some kindling and got a little fire going in the fireplace. I sat there for a few moments, stoking the flames while the wood hissed and popped. Soon the whole living room was toasty. Mallory appeared at my side and sat down. She leaned towards the fire, its orange glow warming her face. I caught myself staring at her, clapped my hands against my thighs.
Well, I better make use of this time and get some work done on my computer.
Doesn't that use up the electricity?
The computer only draws around 250 watts. A couple of hours won't make much of a difference.
Mallory stayed by the fire while I went to my desk and booted up my computer. The sound of the drizzling rain outside and the crackling fire in the fireplace soothed me as I settled into my chair. I could live like this forever, I thought. The peaceful atmosphere was interrupted by an annoying cascade of chimes from my email. I took a peek at my inbox and saw more spam, of course. Read the spam? No, we'll delete it.
Get out of here, spam. Nobody likes you.
Without thinking about it more than that, I deleted both the emails. Then I spent a few minutes checking some websites that were part of my daily routine. Sites for tech news, world news, and the weather. AC is agreeing with me. Delete that shit. A random ad for amazing delivery services reminded me about the first aid kit I needed to replace. I decided I might as well grab some painkillers too, since there had only been a handful left in the bottle when Mallory had asked for one for her leg. She seemed much better now, but still, it was good to have things like that on hand. You never knew when a headache might strike or a joint might get sprained. I ordered the new first aid kit and the aspirin, and then something else caught my eye. It was a type of ad I'd never usually get, and certainly never pay any mind to, but for some reason I did this time. It was just a basic advertisement peddling some chintzy jewelry, but something compelled me to take a closer look. Uh-oh, he's gonna buy her fucking jewelry. Don't do it, man. Don't do it. After clicking through, I was presented with an image of a stunning silver ring in the shape of a bow. The color and the sparkle immediately reminded me of Mallory. Well, of course, who else is it gonna remind you of? You don't know any other women. I wanted to buy it. For her. The next thing I knew, the order had been placed and a message appeared letting me know that all 3 of my purchased items would be arriving via drone drop within the next few days. The whole order plus delivery fees was ridiculously expensive. But what else was I going to spend my money on? I leaned back in my chair a little bit in disbelief of myself. I looked over at Mallory sitting in the living room. She had that old basket of clothing set beside her with a little pile of things neatly refolded beside it. Her head was bent low over some garment in her lap, her fingers working away. I realized then that she was using a needle and thread, sewing up holes and fastening buttons back where they belonged. I forgot about the work I'd wanted to get done. I got up out of my seat and wandered over to look more closely at what she was doing.
Are you mending my clothes?
She brightened.
Yes, those ones are already done, and these ones here are still in progress.
I didn't even know you'd been working on this.
Well, normally I work on it before I go to sleep or when I first wake up. I find it sort of meditative.
You know, you don't have to do all these things for me.
I like keeping busy, and I like being helpful. Really, you've been so generous and kind taking me in like this. I just want to do everything I can to help you.
Stop thinking about your genitals. Calm down and go to horny jail, AC says. About buying her jewelry. Yeah, it's like he's already whipped, right? You kept working while she talked, so sweet and matter-of-fact. I smiled, and suddenly I really didn't want to go bother with my work. I just wanted to hang out with her.
You know, I don't think I'm in the right headspace for work today. Luckily, I don't have any looming deadlines, so maybe I'll take today off. We could just sit and enjoy the fire together. Maybe we could play a board game.
Mallory looked up at me in surprise.
Ooh, I love games. What do you have in mind?
I searched my memory. What two-player games did I have kicking around? Most of the board games left in the cabin were more than a decade old. They were the ones I used to play with my family when we vacationed here, and many of them were probably missing cards or pieces.
How about chess? Do you know how to play?
Surely the chess set on the game shelf would still be intact, and those old pieces would be thrilled to get some use after all these years.
Chess? Yes. I used to play with my sister sometimes. I'm probably not very good at it.
That's okay. Neither am I. I'll grab the game. Meet me at the table, okay?
I went to retrieve the chess set, just where I remembered. I unearthed the box and was dusting it off with my sleeve when I heard Mallory make a little noise.
Uh-oh.
I turned to check on her, still sitting on the floor beside the fireplace, mended clothing strewn about.
What's wrong?
She raised her hand up to her lips and began biting her nail.
I can't get up. My leg's fallen asleep.
Her words brought back a familiar phrase she had said to me the night we met. I chuckled and reached out my hand for her to her.
Well, at least it's only asleep and not caught in a trap this time.
Good point. She smiled and accepted my hand to lift her up. Funny how I didn't even think twice about it anymore.
White or black?
We set the board out on the table, started setting up the pieces.
Wait, please.
I sat down on the black side of the board and finished arranging my pieces. When I looked up, Mallory was examining the box with pursed lips.
Are you missing a piece?
Looks that way. I don't mind subbing in a salt shaker or something else to play with.
No way. We should play with real pieces.
She gave me a look. It was sort of dismissive, sort of disheartened. But I meant what I'd said, and I knew how to cheer her up.
Seriously, I can make you a proper chess piece. And I can make it look however you like.
Mallory stared at me, one eyebrow a little higher than the other.
How?
I held out one finger and headed towards my computer desk.
Remember the gauze with the cute potato pattern on it? I printed that out with my 3D printer. See?
I took the equipment out and hooked it up to my computer, giving her a quick overview as I did.
This is just a small one, but it's very useful and quite simple. I just plug in the USB cable to my computer, then use a program to tell the printer what to make.
Whoa, that's so cool. I'm missing the queen. Can it make that piece?
I let out a theatrical laugh, throwing my head back as I did so.
This baby can make anything your heart desires. Ask and you shall receive.
She cradled her chin while she thought.
I desire a cat.
A cat queen? All right, that works.
Can I watch?
The enthusiasm she showed left no room for argument. I loaded up my software to search for a cat and picked out a cute figurine. I set it up to print and let Mallory press the very last OK button to get the process started. Several indicator lights on the 3D printer flashed as it got to work. It started to hum and to whir.
It's like something out of science fiction.
Mallory tilted her head to get a better look at the printer. She stood up to lean over and watch the cat being formed. The angle exposed her cleavage and bra. I tried not to look, unsure if she was aware of what her positioning was putting on display. I'd rather assume it was a mistake and not take advantage of it, no matter how attractive the sight was. We were both quiet while we waited. Level after level, the Cat Queen built upon itself, and about 4 minutes later, we had a replacement chess piece. I removed the piece from the printer, handed it to Mallory. and watched her expression turn from amazement to joy. AC says bonk.
It's perfect.
And it wasn't the only thing. We sat down to play, and the conversation came so easy. We shared what we knew about chess, how we'd learned to play, and how the game itself dated back to the 15th century, and how these days most people played it online. We talked about Deep Blue, the first computer to beat a world chess champion, and then the conversation turned to other random things that made us laugh, little anecdotes from childhood, questions we had about the universe. It turned into one of those days where the time just passed you by, impossible to notice. Until Mallory sat up straight while I was contemplating my options, pointing urgently.
Hey, look! There! The clouds are breaking.
Nuh-uh, I'm not falling for that. You just want me to turn my back so you can move the pieces around. You trickster, you.
Yeah.
I hissed at her, shaking my head, and she laughed.
No, seriously. Look, the sun is shining over there. Can we go outside to look at it?
I twisted in my seat. Through the window, I could see the great gray sky, and there, over the mountains, a glowing crack shedding golden sunbeams down onto the land.
Wow. Okay, yeah. Good idea. And I know a perfect viewing spot.
Mallory gleefully hopped off her chair and took my hand in hers. Outside, the air was damp. We walked together around the side of the house, the ladder I'd used the other day. I climbed up first and then turned to help Mallory up the last ladder rung and over the edge of the roof. Her hands felt so little and fragile in mine. It does look pretty.
Watch your step. It's still wet and might be slippery. Luckily, the ridges help give traction.
We stood side by side, and out of an abundance of caution, and only an abundance of caution, I held her. The sun was on its way down, and I could tell the sunset was going to be incredible.
What do you think? Pretty good spot to watch the sunset?
Mallory took a few steps forward, leaving my hands empty. I shoved them into my pockets. For a moment, everything was quiet. I scanned the world around me and saw gray clouds streaking downward in the distance, trees in heavy shadow, with their tips lit up by the sinking sun, the ruins of the city nestled in the thriving landscape, and her. She let out a long, careful sigh, turning slightly to look back in my direction.
It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Wow, look at that art. Look at that fucking art. Yeah, while she's saying it's the most beautiful thing she's ever seen, he's probably thinking that about her. Just saying. A cool wind blew past, catching her shining platinum hair and sending a few strands dancing around her head. There was something mournful in her tone, and it made my heart ache.
Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for showing me all of this.
I stared at her, wondering why she sounded so sad, yet also understanding that her sadness was the same as mine. God, it was beautiful. I stared, and I didn't know how I'd lived so long without her. Something changed up there on the roof. I came back to myself when a strong, cold gust rushed past me, and I realized the sun had dipped beneath the horizon. I'd spent the whole time watching Mallory instead of watching the sunset.
It's already over? It happened so quick.
Yeah, it did.
Mallory had her arms wrapped around herself. I saw goosebumps on her legs, a little shivering in her shoulders.
I don't know about you, but I'm freezing. Shall we go back in?
I never paid attention before. I never cared.
She was so sad. I wanted to make it stop just for her, but I didn't know how.
Maybe the most beautiful things are beautiful because they're fleeting. You have to appreciate them while they're there. But hey, there'll be another sunset tomorrow.
I think we got a little bit of foreshadowing there, guys. What do you guys think? I think we maybe got a little bit of foreshadowing there. I kind of feel like he said sometimes the most beautiful things are fleeting. I kind of have a feeling that this visual novel is going to end in heartbreak. We shall see. It was getting dark now. I felt a few raindrops, and the air felt heavy and sharp.
It's starting to rain again. Come on, let's go in.
Mallory turned slowly, nodding, not looking me in the eye. I stood by the ladder.
After you.
Her head was bowed, and she moved so tentatively. I couldn't tell whether it was because she was sad or because she was nervous. Help her off the roof? Let's help her.
Let me help you down.
I offered my hand. She grasped it firmly and shuffled towards the edge of the roof, turning around. She lowered herself onto the ladder slowly, making her way down one careful step at a time. I waited for her to reach the ground before I climbed down after her.
Thank you. You're like my own personal guardian. I feel like you'd never let anything bad happen to me.
That's alright,
Not
girl.
if you could help it anyway.
Of course. I care about your well-being.
Basically, he's saying, I care about you. She smiled at me, and we carefully made our way back inside the house. The fire had burned low, but the inside of the cabin was warm and inviting. I felt a strange sense of calm.
It's so nice in here. I didn't realize how cold I was.
I nodded, resisting the urge to remind her about the jacket I had offered her every time we went through the door. I could tell she wasn't in the mood for me to poke fun at her right now. It was getting late. My stomach ached for something to eat, and I was sure she needed something too.
How about I heat up something from the freezer? And while we're waiting, we can have tea. It's my turn to make it this time.
That sounds nice.
Settled herself in by the fire, gazing into the glowing embers. She seemed like she was a million miles away. I made my way over to the kitchen and filled up the kettle. I took out a container of stew and began the process of thawing it in the stove. Searched through my pantry for a particular jar of loose leaf tea, something I wanted her to try. And I waited for the water to boil. When the tea was made, I poured Mallory's into a tacky cat mug my mother had bought at a yard sale once upon a time. I was glad to see Mallory's eyes light up when I handed her the mug.
Oh my, this is the cutest.
She likes it.
I thought you might like it.
I sat by her on the couch. The rain was coming down again, drumming hard on the windows. We sat just listening, sipping our tea.
This tea is super yummy. Where did you get it from?
Phew, I was hoping you'd say that. I actually made it myself.
It almost sounds like a lot of these times when he's talking about how he made this himself and made the maple syrup himself and made this tea himself. It almost sounds like he's bragging a little bit, trying to show off a little bit. Like, I think he can knock that shit off for a little bit. Just
If
saying.
you didn't like it, I probably would have told you it was a free sample that came in the mail or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, I think she likes him already. I don't think he needs to keep pouring it on.
You really made it? Like you grew it in your fish garden?
Yep, harvested the tea leaves myself, dried them, tested different blends.
That's amazing. Who taught you all that?
I cleared my throat, a little nervous.
My mom did. She was a doctor. But she always had an affinity for herbal home remedies too. You know, ginger for an upset stomach, honey for a sore throat, antibiotics for an infection. When I was a kid, I didn't know there was any difference. All I knew was that whenever I was sick or hurt, my mom would whip out some drink or salve that made everything better. It was like witchcraft. She was really the one who taught me all about plants, how to take care of them, how they can be used.
Remembering my mother like this made my throat feel tight, brought a tear to my eye, and a smile to my lips. It was the strangest feeling, totally bittersweet. Mallory's voice softened.
Your mother sounds incredible. If she was a doctor, then she probably saved many lives.
Yes, she and my father both helped save many people.
Gathering the courage to continue talking about them, I took a deep breath and closed my eyes.
They both died helping people.
Wow.
Until the bitter end, they tried to save as many lives as possible.
Mallory put her hand on top of mine. It was unusually warm, probably as a result of her holding onto the mug.
They left behind a wonderful person.
Aww.
And you should be proud of that fact. I'm sorry that you lost them.
What a sweetheart. Hearing her kind words nearly sent me into another wave of emotions, but I managed to hold them back.
Thanks. So, is it your turn again? I've told you about my parents and my dog, but you haven't told me anything about your family.
I tried to make my voice sound light and easy, but really I was serious. I wanted to know more about her. Her hand twitched. Look at that sad face again. And for a second I was afraid she would take it away, but she didn't. Stared at me, and the silence went on so long, I felt I had to fill it.
Honestly, Mallory, why are you so secretive? Why can't you tell me what you were doing out in the rain that night?
Wow. Pressure's on now, Mallory. What do you guys think it is? Why is she so secretive? What is she not wanting to tell him?
I want to know what brought you to me.
That did it. She pulled away and sank a little deeper into the couch, looking so sorrowful that it hurt.
I'm scared to talk about it. Just thinking about it hurts so much. And I'm afraid that if I say it out loud, I won't be able to take the pain.
Oh, she's starting to cry. I frowned.
I understand, but if you share it with someone who cares about you, then they'll carry some of that pain too. You won't have to shoulder it alone.
Yeah, she was running from an abuser, is what AC predicts. Yeah, probably something like that. Like with the world turning more, because of the sickness and quarantine and stuff like that, somebody probably, abducted her and was, who knows. She doesn't show any signs or anything like that of being abused or physically abused or bruises or anything, at least that we've seen. But who knows, yeah.
That someone is me, by the way. In case it wasn't obvious.
He's basically saying, just tell somebody who cares about you, because then they can carry some of the burden. Smiled softly.
I do want you to know me. To know about them. My family. Life was hard, but I loved them so much. It was just me, my mom, and my little sister. That was my bubble.
Okay. So her mom, and her little sister.
We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. We learned to do a lot with the little. Cooking nice meals out of subpar food, dressing up in old worn-out clothes, reenacting our favorite books when we couldn't read because the power was out again and there was no light. Our mom was a factory worker, so she had to go out every day to earn money for us so that we could at least survive. When she started showing symptoms, they sent her home. She tried to protect us. She stayed in her room, but we still went in, always trying to get her to eat or drink, giving her aspirin to keep down that awful fever.
Oh boy.
She kept telling us to stop coming in. We called for an ambulance already, but we were still on the waiting list. And what were we supposed to do? Leave her to die alone in her room? Well, she did die.
Aww.
My sister was with her when it happened. But I was out in the kitchen making us all something to eat. I can't even remember what it was.
This is sad. I mean, this is pretty good acting. I mean, I give the voice actors that did this visual novel credit. They did a good job. A tear ran down Mallory's cheek. Poor girl. Her mom died from the virus. Again, great art.
By the time it was our turn for the ambulance to come, it was only to take away a body.
Oh, damn.
My sister and I, we didn't know what to do. How were we going to be able to buy food or pay for electricity? We were at the mercy of companies already struggling to produce anything. Factories in the middle of shutdowns due to waves of sickness. And it just seemed hopeless. But, you know, we had learned about people living outside the cities. Smaller communities living off the land instead of trying to survive the old way. We thought, if that was real, maybe we should just leave the city behind. Somehow figure out a way to be like those people. Like you.
I nodded. For a long time, I'd wondered why anyone had ever chosen to stay in the cities. Eventually, I realized not everyone was lucky enough to have inherited an off-grid cabin like I did. I couldn't imagine the impossibility of getting started from scratch. Valerie gripped the edges of her sweater dress so tightly that she trembled.
About a week after our mom died, my sister gave me some laundry she just finished washing. She asked me to hang it out on the balcony to dry. And while I did that, she locked me outside.
Oh boy.
I thought it was a prank at first, but she wouldn't let me in, and I got upset. I was banging on the door, yelling at her through the glass to open up.
Her sister probably committed suicide or something. What are you guys saying?
She told me she couldn't because she was sick.
Oh.
She'd started developing symptoms the night before.
Oh no.
And she struggled with it all night and all morning. And finally, I begged her to open the door. She refused. She said there was no safe way for us to stay together. Our mother's attempts to protect us hadn't worked. So my sister decided to take drastic action while she could.
Wow. My heart sank like a stone with every word that she spoke.
She locked you out to save you.
Yep. She really loved you. Mallory nodded slowly.
We both cried, looking at each other from opposite sides of the glass, while she begged me to go.
Aww.
So, I did. I climbed down the fire escape and just started walking. I wandered along the river and out through the suburbs into the woods. I didn't have anywhere to go, so I just kept on going. Eventually, I was heading up the mountain, totally lost, and that's when I found this place.
I shook my head, completely at a loss for words. I never could have imagined that this was her tale. Even when she first came to me, bleeding and range-rich, she'd been bright and kind and helpful. And then I remembered the quiet little sobs I'd heard after turning my back, and the way she sometimes seemed so far away. And I wanted to wrap her up in my arms and hold her so tight that no more grief could ever touch her. She turned and smiled at me through her tears, and I realized how good she was at putting on that brave, optimistic face.
I still think that maybe, somehow my sister's okay. Maybe she called for help and they came in time, and found room for her in a hospital ward, and she's fighting right now to pull through. I wonder if this was fate all along. I found you, and you taught me all these things. And we're all going to be just fine.
Stunned by her words, I slid off the couch and knelt before her. My body acted on its own, relieved that she was safe, here with me now. I took her hands in mine to reassure her.
I think you're right. I think it was fate. Because as much as you needed someone like me, I needed someone like you even more.
I felt like I was drowning in her eyes. The rain was beating down outside, roaring louder as gusts of wind sent torrents crashing against the cabin. I felt like this closeness with her, and I hungered for more. More talking, more banter, more laughter, more time, more touching, more everything. Through the noise of the rain, I heard the pot of stew I left on the stove starting to bubble.
I should check that.
Mallory wiped her tears as I got up and returned to the kitchen. The stew had thawed and heated through quite nicely, especially considering I'd left it unattended for so long. Imagine how awkward it would have been to serve her burnt food after that whole talk, snorted my brain. I brought Mallory a bowl, and she thanked me. We sat and ate and talked a little, the conversation growing lighter as the cabin darkened. The storm kept on and on outside, and soon rolling claps of thunder were shaking the sky. Mallory's face grew paler as the noise grew. Set her empty bowl aside and shifted uncomfortably, eyes listening.
It's gotten pretty late. I guess we should go to sleep.
Are you okay?
Oh, totally. I just feel a little on edge during storms, that's all. No big deal. It's really fine.
Okay. Well, there's the crank flashlight on the desk over by the door, if you feel like you need some backup light. And you know I'm just upstairs. Good night, Mallory.
I climbed upstairs, got undressed, and crawled into bed. I stared at the ceiling as rain pounded the window beside me. Wind howling down over the mountain ridge. I thought about everything Mallory had told me, and everything that had happened between us over the past few days. I turned off the light. Slowly, I drifted towards sleep, less and less aware of the flashes of lightning and booming thunder. I started to dream without fully realizing it, imagining that my old house cat, Fidget, had crawled onto the bed with me, imagining that my bed was floating on ocean waves. A crack of thunder, louder than the rest, and a squeal coming from somewhere very close woke me. Uh-oh. Mallory peered at me from beneath my own blankets. For a moment I thought it was a dream, but no, I could feel her there beside me, trembling.
I'm sorry. I lied and I'm not fine. I don't like thunder. I just get so scared. I can't help it.
I don't think he's gonna have any problem letting her sleep next to him. Just saying. The tremors in her voice were even worse than in her body. I suspected the storm had made her a little uneasy, but I had no idea she'd been fighting down this much terror. I sat up, reached for her, and my only instinct to comfort her and protect her. And that's when I remembered I was in my underwear. Maybe she wouldn't notice. Oh boy.
It's okay. It's only noise. It'll be over soon.
She nuzzled into me, sniffling. Her face was red. Moisture glistened on her face and her chest. She was sweating and crying, and her heart pounded so hard I could feel it through the mattress.
I don't want to sleep alone tonight.
Okay. It's okay.
I stopped short in disbelief of how much my mindset had changed. How had I gone from refusing to be anywhere near her to this? She was in my bed now, and we were breathing each other's air, and I hadn't even checked her temperature.
I want to stay with you.
She whispered this, touching my hand, her eyes pleading with me. She was so beautiful. All I wanted to do in that moment was kiss her. Show her how you feel or hold back. It's too soon. What do you guys say? Let me know. We're gonna kiss her or are we gonna hold back? Kiss her, says AC. Slowly, I leaned in and brushed my lips against hers. A moment later, she kissed me back. We looked at each other again, and my arms tightened around her.
I want you to stay with me too.
She shifted closer to me, resting her head on the pillow next to mine. She sniffled, giving me a soft smile as I stroked her hair.
Thank you for everything. You make me feel so safe.
I watched Mallory's eyes fall shut. Her breathing became deep and slow, and though she'd fallen asleep, the little smile never faded. I kept stroking her hair. It felt so soft between my fingers. I was hypnotized. He's falling in love and she's falling asleep. I'm just kidding. How had I lived all alone for so long? How had I not known what I was missing? As the storm gradually retreated and the night grew darker and quieter, I struggled to keep my eyes open. Maybe I was a little afraid that if I let myself fall asleep, I'd wake up to find this was all just a dream. But eventually, I fell asleep anyway. So we're on to Chapter 7, Integration. The next morning, I awoke to the sound of rain softly pelting the windows. The storm had passed, leaving only a damp, drizzly day behind. I kept my eyes closed and listened. I could hear the faint sound of the rain dripping from the downspout along the house. I stretched out my arms. The bed around me was empty and cold. Mallory was gone. But I knew she had been there because I could still feel her on my skin. The cabin felt extra chilly. I got out of bed and dressed up warm, pulling a pair of worn-out slippers. I made my way downstairs. Right away, I spotted Mallory in the kitchen and felt my face break into a smile. She had a bucket and a bunch of rags out, and she seemed to be cleaning quite furiously with a cloth and a spray bottle in hand.
Good morning.
She started upright, fumbling and dropping the spray bottle. It clattered on the floor at her feet.
You scared me.
Sorry. I guess these slippers add +1 to my sneak ability.
I'm sure. Mallory bent to pick up the bottle. When she stood back up, I noticed how red her cheeks were and how the rest of her face looked almost sickly pale.
Are you feeling okay?
She quickly averted her gaze.
I'm fine. I just got dizzy from standing up so quickly.
I didn't think I really believed her. She was feeling awkward, maybe even hiding something. Had I done something to make her feel uncomfortable? I looked around at the sparkling kitchen, the cabinets, the appliances, the dishes, all gleaming like new.
You must have woken up really early to get this much work done. Did you get enough sleep?
What's that? Oh, yes I did.
Then her face softened and her tone turned sincere.
I think last night was the best sleep I've ever had.
My heart fluttered with acknowledgement, and with the memory of falling asleep with her in my arms.
Good. I agree.
She nodded and turned back to finish up her chores in the kitchen. I decided to check in with the work stuff, so I booted up my computer. There were only a handful of emails needing attention. I handled those and glanced through my work deadlines, making sure I was still on track with each of my freelance jobs. For whatever reason, I wasn't finding it easy to focus. I kept glancing at the window, then zoning out as I watched the dribbling rain. It really showed no signs of stopping. I noticed an empty glass I'd left on the table outside was filled to the brim with rainwater. The soaked wooden planks on the deck looked dark like caramel. I thought about the coming winter. I'd have to show Mallory how to protect the garden and the hens and the bees when the colder weather came. And then there were all the fun things we could do together. I wondered if she'd ever gone tobogganing before or had a bonfire out in the snow. If I could find somewhere online to buy marshmallows and order them the right way, they might get dropped off sometime in the winter. There came a sudden clatter and a thud from the kitchen. Uh-oh. I jumped, nearly knocking my coffee mug off the desk.
Mallory?
He didn't answer. I stood up quickly, walking over to see what had happened. My throat tightened when I looked past the counter. Mallory lay sprawled on the floor, her cheeks red, and beads of sweat gleamed on her forehead. Her eyes were closed, her head gently lolling to the side.
Mallory!
I rushed to her side, dropping to my knees and propping her up in my arms. The touch of her skin warmed my hands. She was burning up. A groan left her lips and her eyes fluttered open.
Mallory, are you okay?
Hey there. Why are we on the floor?
Her gaze seemed to drift past me, as though she was having a hard time focusing.
You must have fainted. I knew something wasn't right. Why didn't you tell me?
I'm fine. It was just a sudden dizzy spell. I haven't eaten breakfast, that's probably it.
But I could feel her body starting to tremble. Her skin felt fever hot, and yet there were goosebumps on her arms and her legs. Yet, my only instinct now was to make sure she was okay. I lifted her up off the floor.
Oh my, what are you doing? Ew, put me down!
Oh boy. I quickly carried her over to the couch and put her down there. I covered her in blankets and tucked her in tightly, my face set with grim determination. I brushed her hair back to feel her forehead and ignored the anxious way my stomach clenched. I darted back into the kitchen, grabbed my temperature scanner from the drawer, and returned to Mallory's side.
Honestly, I'm fine. I probably just overworked myself.
Not buying it.
I held up the scanner. It seemed to take forever and ever to come up with a reading, and when it did, my heart sank.
You definitely have a fever.
Mallory seemed to shrink under the blankets. Seeing her like this, looking so helpless and uncertain, made my heart feel like it was being painfully squeezed.
Is it your leg? Let me look at it. Maybe you've developed an infection. When did you start feeling sick? This morning? We can get your temperature under control with some aspirin, no worries. And then we'll go from there.
I didn't know when I had started to pace, but there I was, headed this way and that way, making my way over to the kitchen to search for whatever it was that could help her. I filled a glass with water and reached up in my cupboards for the aspirin bottle, grateful to have kept a supply. Except it wasn't there. Where was it? Had I misplaced it? Maybe Mallory had put it somewhere. By mistake. I brought her the glass of water anyway and used a damp cloth to cool her forehead.
Shh. Just relax and let me take care of you for a minute, okay?
She opened her mouth to argue, probably, but backed down when she saw the look in my eyes. I moved to her feet and pushed back the blanket to expose her injured leg, and I carefully unwrapped the gauze and peeled back the bandages to see what was going on. There was bruising around the wound, and it was still a little bit swollen, but then, it had only been a few days. The healing process for something like this would take weeks.
I should be keeping a closer eye on this.
I shook my head.
Drink your water, okay? And you should have something to eat. What would you like?
I'm not really hungry. I just feel a bit tired. I'm sure I'll feel good as new if I just have a little nap.
I let out a concerned sigh, but agreed. After tucking her in a little tighter, I crossed back into the kitchen stood there aimlessly for a moment or two. I didn't know what to do. Make her a pot of soup, said my brain. Good idea, brain, I thought.
Carrots, onions, celery, potatoes. Potatoes? Oh no, of course I don't have potatoes.
I muttered to myself as I searched my kitchen for ingredients, and then began roughly chopping what I had. There was some rice in the pantry, I knew, and some peas in the freezer. Soon I was tipping my soup ingredients into a pot with a shower of salt and dried parsley. I covered all of it with a stock I'd made from kitchen bones and veggie scraps, and then I set it to simmer. When I crept back over to check on Mallory, I found her deeply asleep. I exchanged the damp cloth on her forehead and piled more blankets around her, and then just sat and watched her, feeling dismayed. Deep down, I knew what this could be, but I didn't want to think about it. And if I did have to think about it, I didn't want to believe it. And if I had every reason to believe it, no. I stood up and returned to the kitchen, gave the bubbling soup a stir, and remembered the aspirin. I started searching for it again, checking each of the drawers and the cabinets. I searched in the bathroom and in the living room, even getting down on my knees to see if it had rolled beneath some furniture. That's when I spotted it, hidden beneath the couch where Mallory was resting. I reached under the couch and grabbed the bottle. A feeling of immense dread began to form within me. Already I could tell by the weight of the bottle and the silence as I turned it, but I had to see it to believe it. I popped off the cap and looked inside. The bottle was empty, at least 20, maybe 30 tablets gone, in less than a week. Oh boy. I looked up at Mallory's sleeping face. I jumped in a loud thwack on the window. Irrationally, I wondered if someone had thrown a rock. It was more likely that a bird had flown into the glass, especially considering how clean it had been since Mallory had come to stay. I went to the window to check. Sure enough, a large black bird lay dead on the porch. It appeared to have snapped its neck when it hit the window. Oh damn, that's a bad sign. That's like a sign of bad luck, right? Big black bird crashes right into the window and dies?
Mallory would hate to see that.
Yeah? I glanced back at her, a little worried I'd wake her up by talking to myself. But even the loud noise of the bird hitting the window hadn't caused her to stir. In that moment, I realized I was still clutching the empty aspirin bottle. I looked down at it. She must have been taking them in secret. But why? For the pain in her leg? Or for some other ailment? An overwhelming sense of frustration washed over me in that moment, and without thinking, my hand squeezed the bottle so tightly that I broke it. I threw the broken bottle in the trash and stormed outside to deal with the dead bird's body. It wasn't until the evening that Mallory woke up. She started coughing right away, even as she sat up, clutching the blankets close to herself. Uh-oh.
Huh? What time is it?
This is not good.
Don't get up, at least not so fast. Let me help you.
I stood in the kitchen, tending to the soup that had been keeping warm for hours now. Mallory looked around groggily, rubbing her eyes.
But it's nighttime. Why did you let me sleep so long? I only wanted to rest for an hour or so.
That's not what your body wanted. I'm glad you got some rest anyway. It was clearly much needed.
Though I told her not to move yet, she bundled the blankets around her and made her way over to the kitchen.
Hi.
She leaned against the support beam. Her cheeks were still red, and her eyelids looked heavy. The way she wrapped the blanket around herself made her resemble a colorful turtle, with her long, slender arms poking out to hold on to the beam.
How do you feel?
My muscles are a bit achy, but I don't feel cold anymore. I think all the blankets you piled on top of me helped.
I nodded and turned my attention back to the stove. I wanted to ask about the aspirin, but I was nervous.
Wait, are you cooking?
She took a step towards me, trying to peer into the pot, and then wobbled, and she had to return to the support beam. It looked as though she barely had any strength to stand. I bit my tongue, not wanting to be overbearing. I'd get her to sit back down by offering her some food.
I am. It's ready to eat now. Go have a seat and I'll bring you a bowl.
Wow. I half expected her to argue with me, to insist that she could get her own bowl, or that I should sit while she served me. But instead, she just backed away and went to sit at the table.
It looks really good. Thank you for making it.
My pleasure. I bet you thought I had no cooking skills. Well, it's finally my time to shine.
She laughed half-heartedly.
I look forward to seeing what you're capable of, Cooking Senpai.
She folded her blanket neatly over the chair beside her, then placed her arms on the table to form a pillow for her head. She sat with her head down until I set a bowl of soup beside her.
Oh, that looks so wonderful.
She leaned over the steaming bowl with her eyes closed, holding back her hair as she breathed in slowly.
I use lots of spices. They make all the difference when flavoring a dish.
I gave her a little wink and she smiled.
Bon appetit.
We both raised the steaming spoonfuls of soup, blowing on them slowly. Only Mallory's exhalation turned raspy, hitched. She started to cough. She dropped her spoon back into the bowl, held a hand to her throat. She drew a deep breath, looking dismayed.
I'm so sorry.
Too spicy?
No, I can't. I don't know why.
Uh-oh. Mallory tried her best to stifle the coughs with little success. A nervous laugh came out of my mouth.
Those autumn allergies are so annoying, am I right?
She didn't answer. She was breathing very slowly and focusing very hard on bringing a spoonful of soup to her mouth. She slurped it, and honestly, she looked like she wanted to throw up.
That bad?
No,
She was racked with another coughing fit. Her chest seemed to rattle with each breath. I couldn't stand seeing her like this. I went to her, rubbing her back as I pushed a glass of water into her hands.
Here, drink some.
She nodded and clutched the glass hard, trying her best to drink while her chest heaved. A minute later, after she managed to take a few sips, she was able to breathe a little more easy.
I'm so sorry. I can't seem to stop.
You don't have to be sorry.
Tears began to roll down her face. They splashed onto the table and into her neglected soup bowl.
What if...
Shh.
Oh no. More tears dripped from her eyes. More coughs rattled in her chest.
You don't have to worry. Everything will be okay. All you need to do is rest and let me take care of you. This will pass.
I think I maybe just want to lie down.
Okay? I'll help you upstairs to the bed. You'll be extra comfy there.
She gave a small nod. Her eyes were puffy and red as she gathered up her blankets in her arms. We headed for the stairs. I walked with her, taking the steps one at a time and holding her in case she lost her strength. Her skin felt even hotter, burning me even through her sleeve. She needed a fever reducer, that was certain. I made a mental note to check when the new bottle of aspirin I ordered would arrive. Once we'd made it to the upper floor, Mallory pushed me away and started coughing into her blankets, doubling over and trying to muffle the sound of her pain. I unfurled the bed covers and helped her climb in, straightening out her collection of blankets and pulling all the covers up over her.
All these blankets are so heavy. I can barely move.
Good. That means you're tucked in, safe and sound.
I brushed her hair back, tracing the side of her burning face with my fingertip.
I'm going to get you some water and things. And then I'll be back, okay?
I hurried back downstairs and started loading up a tray with water, a few damp face cloths, and her uneaten bowl of soup. I wanted her to have it right there beside her the minute she got an appetite. But of course, that wouldn't be enough. I racked my brain for anything I had in the house that would help drive down her fever. And then it hit me. My mother used to talk about the healing properties of basil and garlic. I couldn't quite recall the specifics, but it was something, and I had both of those items growing in my home. I rushed over to the kitchen to fill the kettle with water. While that was coming up to a boil, I darted to the aquaponics room. There were 4 medium-sized basil plants sitting happily under the grow lights, waiting for me to harvest their emerald petals. In that moment, my heart inflated twice its size, full of joy that I might finally be able to do something to help soothe Mallory's pain. I plucked a handful of the leaves from all the basil plants, which were different strains, but I didn't think it would matter. Next, I dug out some garlic and extracted a homemade jar of honey that was sitting on the back shelf. Looking around at all the plants and fish, I did one last scan in case there was anything else I could use. On impulse, I spotted a bright red hibiscus flower in bloom, and I plucked it. The lone flower had an unusually bright color amongst all the other dark, leafy greens. Dashing back into the kitchen, I added the garlic, basil, and honey to the boiling water. The concoction probably wouldn't taste very good, but I hoped it would soothe her throat and help her with her cough. Delicately, I placed the flower on the tray, along with a mug of freshly brewed tea. The smell was overpowering. Hibiscus, there we go. Maybe she wouldn't be able to smell it. Ascending the stairs, I could hear Mallory coughing. She wasn't trying to stifle it anymore. I paused on the steps, waiting for her to finish letting it out. A small groan followed the coughing fit. I climbed the rest of the way up the stairs, plastering what I hoped was an optimistic expression onto my face.
Hey, I'm back. And I brought you your soup, in case you have an appetite. Also...
Oops. Sorry. Also, some tea that should help with that cough. She pulled up the covers close to her face in a poor attempt to hide herself. I rested the tray next to the bed and placed one of the damp cloths on her forehead. Man, she doesn't look good. In the dim light of the bedside lamp, I could see trickles of sweat on her face, neck, and breasts.
Thank you, but you're doing too much for me.
Please, it doesn't feel like enough. Isn't there anything else I can get for you?
Her expression turned into a perplexed one for a moment, and then she forced a little smile.
Well, now that you mention it, I could use some tissues.
Ah, right. I've got some in this drawer here. Ta-da!
She took the packet of tissues and turned her face away, coughing a wet, guttural cough.
Why are you so determined to take care of me?
Her gaze was filled with hope and confusion. I took her hand in mine and gave it a small squeeze.
You would do the same for me, wouldn't you?
Her lips parted and her eyes opened wide. She gave me a soundless nod of reassurance.
It's a no-brainer. I care about you, and want you to feel better. It's as simple as that.
There was a long silence between us then, exchanging our knowing looks with gentle hand squeezes. I thought about the aspirin, the 20 or 30 pills that had disappeared in the space of just a few days.
Hey, I found the aspirin bottle, by the way.
She gasped, pulling back her hand from mine to cover her face.
I'm so sorry. I should have said something sooner.
I mean, yeah, you should have. Was it for your leg? To stop it hurting? Or did you know you were developing a fever? You know what? It doesn't matter. I placed an order for more. It should be here tomorrow or the next day, I think. I want you to know that I'm grateful to have you here, and I care about you very much.
Parting her fingers to let her eyes peek through, she slowly lowered her defenses.
I don't want to be sick.
I know.
I don't want you to get sick.
Uh-oh.
I'm not worried about that.
You can't be near me. You need to stay away.
I stretched out next to her on the bed, my face resting close to hers.
I'm staying right here, by your side, no matter what.
Aww. She turned to look at the tray of soup with the water and the tea beside it.
What a pretty flower. Where did it come from?
She reached over to gently pick up the scarlet blossom.
From my fish garden, or whatever you called it. It must have opened up today. I don't remember seeing it when I fed the fish yesterday.
It's beautiful. What type of flower is it?
A hibiscus. They only bloom for a short while, so we're lucky we got to see it.
She lay there with her eyes closed, with the flower pressed to her nose.
The petals make a wonderful tea. I'll make you some with the other blossoms, if you like.
Mallory opened her eyes, but didn't look at me. She was staring out into space, deep in thought.
What is it?
Oh, nothing. The rain sounds nice. I think it's making me sleepy.
I didn't quite believe that. It seemed like there was something she didn't want to say. But I couldn't push her now.
That's perfectly alright. You have sweet dreams now.
Good night.
I lay there watching her breathe, counting the minutes between each coughing fit, resting my hand on her burning chest. Yeah, I can imagine why he's putting his hand on her chest. Resting my hand on her burning chest so I could feel her heartbeat. I had been somewhere like this before. My parents. I had tried my best to care for them when they were sick as well. I'd been so afraid, but I hadn't gotten sick. A part of me also wondered, even hoped, that I might be immune. That thought in the back of my mind hadn't eased my fear of strangers, of Mallory, who first appeared in my life. But now I didn't even care. Either way, all I wanted was for her to get better. Eventually, I drifted off to sleep, too. Heartbeat, heartbeat, heartbeat. Uh-oh, Chapter 8 is called Infection. And with that, guys, I think that's a good spot to stop. Unfortunately, right here in a dramatic moment, is she going to get better? What's going to happen with Mallory next? Is it going to be sickness? Is she going to end up dying like her mother and her sister did? We found out kind of why she wound up at our place, so we did find out more about, you know, who she is and where she came from and why she wound up in our bear trap. And yes, AC calls me a cliffhanging bastard. I do this all the time in my visual novels, but I'm also doing it because it's about the same time as the first part one, just under 2 hours. So we will pick this visual novel up with a live stream under the Moonshine, number 62, part 3. And we'll do that Friday night. Same time, guys. Friday night. Be back here then as I read more of Cabin Fever. So far, it's been pretty good. Like AC was saying, I think it's, you know, a little bit cheeky, but it's also so cute and adorable. The voice acting is really good. The art is fantastic. The music is really well done. And I'm enjoying it. I can't lie. So I'm definitely curious to see what happens next. So we'll see more of this and play more of Cabin Fever on Friday night. Hopefully you'll be here to meet me. We'll see you then. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. And if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure you comment down below. Be sure you like the video. We'll see you in the next one. Live stream under the Moonshine, number 262. We'll see you Friday night, guys. Take care, everybody.